Hello, welcome to the webinar. We'll be going over a new tool called SolidWorks Manage. And it's got a lot of components to it, but I'm mainly going to focus on the project management component inside of it. And this tool's been around actually for a very long time. SolidWorks brought it into the fold back in this last fall, 2017, and it's just now becoming really readily available to the SolidWorks community and getting the information out. So we're trying to do a lot of webinars. We've already had several events, and many of you I see as attendees here have been to these. And now instead of just doing an overview, I want to get into some really nitty-gritty stuff with project management. So just a little intro here. SolidWorks Manage, it does sit on top of SolidWorks PDM Professional, not PDM Standard, but PDM Professional. So the two are tightly integrated with each other. And PDM Professional's been around for a very long time. It's a very nice, mature tool. A lot of people love it and use it day in, day out. But there's still a lot of complexity with all the data that we have to manage outside of just our CAD designs. And that's where SolidWorks Manage is going to help fill the void. So you're going to see some tie-ins with SolidWorks PDM, but mostly I'm going to do a lot of what I'm going to show here is in SolidWorks Manage. Real quick intro about SolidWorks Manage. So there's four key components to the tool. We have dashboards which present data for general consumption of high-level information. So not getting into really details and down in the weeds about all the data that you have in here, but pie charts and graphs and things just to kind of give you good general aggregate information. Project management, which is what we're going to cover today, and then records and BOMs. So records are essentially either documents or non-document records, so just items in the database. And we do a lot of this inside of SolidWorks PDM, but this allows us to take it even further, especially on the bill of materials side. And then also process management. So things like engineering change can be done in here, non-conformance reports, BOM approvals, lots of different processes that don't have to rely on documents the way they do in SolidWorks PDM. So just a real super short intro to what SolidWorks Manage is. If you're interested in any of these other areas, please just reach out to us and we can do some one-on-one, and hopefully in the future I'll also have some webinars on some of the other areas. But today we just want to focus on project management. Okay, and a little bit about the interface. I'm going to be into it in just a second here, but just to give you a brief intro to it. So everything kind of starts down at the bottom left here. You have a little navigation area into those main components, so documents, processes, projects, and so on. And then as you select an item up here, the pane above it will update. And then as you select items in the area here on the top left, then you get all of the listings for those, and then the details about each one down below. And then off to the right, we have a separate flyout that gives us some advanced searching, document preview, and shortcuts. So really this is about project management, and I want to get out of PowerPoint and let's go actually create a project. So I've got two different types of projects that I'm kind of running in here. One is large projects, and another is I call them cookie cutter projects. So these are just real quick, get them in, get them out projects, not a lot of variations in them. Just so you can kind of consume what you have in here. You've got a lot of information about the projects. There's lots of tabs. We're used to these tabs with PDM Professional. But a couple other things I didn't mention before. We can tie bills of materials in with projects. We can add lots of different external and internal documents in here. Obviously Gantt charts, and we'll get into these pretty deep, and tasks, define tasks, and then all these extra star options out here. These are all just kind of unique to this type of project. If I come back up to my cookie cutter projects, you'll see that it's a lot more streamlined. I don't have near as much information here. So you can essentially have projects that are very different, and you can store them very differently over here on the left. All right, so let's go create a cookie cutter project. So it's just a right click and create new. Numbers are automatically generated. Project managers, these come from the list of users that we have inside of Manage, which can also tie into your PDM users. So we're just going to bring in the user I'm logged in as is the admin, and I'm just be using that for this. Now I'm not going to type all this out. I'm just going to copy paste something in here. So we've got a description, and then for this cookie cutter, all we're really doing is just tying it into a customer. That's all I really want. All I really care about at this point. Now you notice over here on the left, these items are grayed out. As soon as I hit the save button, they become available. So once I do that, then I can come over and we can begin planning our project. So the Gantt charts that come in here, these are already templated out. And I've only got one for the cookie cutter one. For the bigger projects, there's about 4 or 5 different Gantt charts that are available to the users. And then we can define when we want this to begin. We'll just go ahead and let it begin today and close that out. So again, and this is something kind of unique to Manage. It does a lot of things happen when you save, and it does want you to save often. So as soon as I save, now I get all of the details that I need down in here. So little intro to the Gantt side. So a lot of information over here on the Gantt chart. We can add new items in here. We can move items through here. If I didn't want to pick a templated Gantt chart, I could ad hoc build one. Not the intent of the cookie cutter one, but definitely an option in here. And we have some options up on top here, so we can take a look at what our baseline is. Now it's a little difficult to see. If you look over here in the chart area, you'll see the baseline is showing up behind there. I've already got a baseline defined, but maybe for this particular one, we know that it's not going to take near as long to do everything, so we're just going to shorten up a few of these things. All right, and then we'll see that our baseline is now highlighted behind there, so we can compare that. Now, if I want to, we can reset that baseline for either the selected stage or for all of the stages. So those of you who know project management, you'll understand what baselining is. I don't have time to get into all the definitions of everything here, but just kind of want to show what all is available. And then one other thing I want to point out is we do have options to show things like critical paths. So not, it's not a very complex project here, so there's not a whole lot to show, but it does give us some options into displaying our critical paths out here. And then another option here, resources. Nothing happens when I turn that on because I don't have any actually defined. So let's go add some resources in here. So we're going to add a few users in here, and actually, hang on. So on the concept stage, we're going to make Annie our resource for that stage. For the design stage, Ian's going to be our resource, and then for fabrication and delivery, Hank's going to be our resource for that. So, And then once we do all of this, and then I can show all the different stages and their resources down here. But again, I don't like to see things in lists. I want to see them graphically. So now when I turn on my resources, and again, I mentioned the save option. As soon as I hit save now, my resources will show up. So now we can see who these resources are, what our baseline is going on, and then some other graphical options up here just to kind of consume how our planning phase is going on. Now, with once we have resources in, we probably also want to add some tasks. So I'm not going to add all the tasks that I would for here. So we're just going to add one, and then I'll go back and we'll show tasks that have already been added for some other areas. So again, Annie's our resource for concept, and she needs to perform a task here. So this is a project. I haven't really laid out the scenario of the project, but this is a project for a redesign of a battery pack. And actually, let's back up a second before we're not going to add a task yet. Let's come down here to related files, and hang on one second. So the customer wants us to redesign to this from this. So they've sent us some imagery, all right? And we're just kind of a industrial design house, and these are our cookie cutter projects. So we want to go from something like this to this, and this is all the customer may have sent us. So what we can do is we can add files in here, just drag and drop, and bring those files in. So I'm now adding documents from external, that we may have gotten from customers or from others, and bringing them in. This is one of the key areas of project management that SolidWorks Manage provides that I haven't seen from other management tools. And sitting on top of your PDM vault, that's where it really starts to take leaps and bounds from other types of tools. So tools like MS Project and Smartsheets, they're external to your vault, and they still require some back and forth between different tools. So here I can bring in external documents, and we've already received some data from, let's get that here. We've already received some data from the customer. So we've got a SolidWorks model, we've got some imagery, and now we've got all of that in our project all under one nice, neat location. All right. So now that you've kind of set up the project, then I can come in and we can add a task. So concept, new base. We could do all sorts of things in here. Let's make Annie our user here. Base for battery pack, and we may allocate X number of hours for Annie to work on this. I'm going to allow her to update the time allocated option on her own. So now she can come in and define, yep, I've already started this, and maybe I'm 10% completed. Also, you can have notes inside of the task, and also have some other options in here. So there's a lot of information on tasks, and the tasks are an area where I'm in just kind of learning a lot about project management inside of Manage. I'm gravitating toward letting my tasks drive all of my completion percentages, and you'll see what I mean by that in just a few minutes. So let's save and close this task, and now I've got a task in here, and we could begin showing all the tasks and see how they lay out with the project. So let me jump into another project where I've got some tasks already defined. And by the way, when we're looking at our main listing over here, over on the left we can see that we have projects with and without tasks. All right, so we've got a handful here that have tasks and some that don't. They may just be so simple they don't really need tasks. All right, so let's take a look at the this jigsaw design. And same ideas here. We've got the same Gantt chart. Now we've got lots of different tasks, and we can see completion percentages on these tasks. We can see all of our resource. I did not assign resources here, or did I? Yeah, I did. There we go. Yep. Show all stages. All right, so instead of showing this as a list, some of the nice things that we have here is we can show this kind of graphically. So I can see who all is defined where on the task board, and color-coded, how far into our tasks are we, or like this packaging requirements, we haven't even started it yet, but the project's not anywhere near ready for packaging yet, so there's really no need for that, so I'm not too worried about that. All right, now what I want to show here is over on the chart we can see these black bars coming across the timelines, and those are showing our completion percentages. So let's take we'll just take fabrication here, for instance. We're going to come down, and I'm going to be Hank, and I'm going to come in and say, yep, I've completed this up to, say, 40 or 50%. All right, we'll save and close that. Now, nothing happens up here. This is a manual step. So what the project manager needs to do is just come in and calculate those tasks. Now, I've only updated one, so I'm not going to do all the stages, but if I just do this selected stage, it updates, and now we see that black bar is coming across that timeline. So very quickly, I'm getting not only linear information down here at the bottom on the task board, but I don't even have to be on the task board to see what's going on. I can quickly see if I'm using my tasks as a way to define completion percentage, I can now see graphically what's going on with those. All right. A few other things that we can add in here. Notifications. So this is an area that I've spent a lot of time talking with PDM users on how to use notifications, and we've had to go into writing custom apps to do things that we can't do out of the box. So here we can add notifications, either email or messaging, and when to send the notification, what stage to define the notification on, and what users should get them. All right, and then we can set up the messaging that needs to be sent out, and then if there are any conditions, so if X is happening, then send a message or not. Okay, so I don't have any created, and I'm not going to send out any, so just want to point that out. All right. Let's see, and then of course I mentioned before, so just so you guys can see, we've got our files listed. Some of these, they're easier actually to view. I wish we could view them right here, but they don't quite view too well up here, but they view quite nicely out here. Where are you? Preview. And unfortunately, when you right-click preview it, that's what I was going to show you that when I had it open. If you right-click on it, preview, it's not really, it's thumbnail preview. But if we come out here to the flyout and select one of these, now we get a nice preview out here. The only thing that doesn't happen is that I don't get a preview on these files, but I can open these in Windows Explorer. There we go. And then of course we're into PDM, which now we can get all of our previews that we need. So while I'm in here, we can also see that we have a new SolidWorks Manage option or tab inside of PDM, and now this is going to allow me to see where things are referenced, so what projects, processes, tasks things are referenced into. I don't have any on this particular one outside of just being referenced. All right. All right. So one other thing that is really nice here, let's slap this down. A lot of times when you're a project manager and you need to see kind of an overview of everything going on with multiple projects, you want to be able to select and kind of look at these projects as a group. So one thing I can do, I can look at the tasks board for all of these projects. And now I can see that same view that we saw before. We can see all of the different tasks, or actually this is only going to show, sorry, this task board is only going to show for one, I apologize. So I can run that task board from one, or can I do it from both? Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I can either show it from one or I can show it from both. Doesn't really show the project out here, so that's why I was getting a little, it could be a little confusing, but you do have the option just to kind of see from a task standpoint, regardless of project, what's going on graphically. But let's take this a little step further, and there's a project planning view, which I really like this. This is going to come in handy for a lot of users. Now I can see all of my projects, and maybe I want to sort these by project manager. So let's turn off everything that's not being managed by Mr. Spence here. And this drill bit up here, we don't really do a lot of bits that make square holes, and I'm going to take this and we're just going to drag this one out. We're just going to move it way out, so I can now start doing some real nice overall planning on my projects without having to go in and out of different projects. All right, we can see some different views in here. For calendar views, we can view these by month, weeks, drive the timeline if I want to see this. So a lot of different options in here. All right. I like the Gantt chart option personally, and now we can kind of get a good view on all of our projects and a good overview, and then definitely show who the project managers are if we have a lot there. All right, so let's close that out, and then the last couple things that I want to show here is I mentioned dashboards and reports. So let's take a look at reports. These are really, really fantastic reports. If you've done reports inside of PDM, these just go miles above. I want to point out there's a save a copy. So save a copy is going to allow me to generate a PDF, drop it into that related files area so that I can get some documentation going on during the project. So if you've ever done any crystal reporting, this is very similar. So we've got lots of different options over here. If we want to show and not show different things, I'll just go ahead and scroll through this so you can kind of see everything and take it all in. So you can make these reports as complicated and detailed as you want, or just something very, very simple. In fact, this one, you can see this project issues. These are, I don't have any on this particular one, but if we had them, they would be in red. Project issues are never good. All right, so that's one way to kind of consume the information up here. Another way is to look at it through a dashboard. So here I've got lots of different dashboards. If we look at this pull down, so this particular one, I'm just concerned with the dashboards for my my cookie cutter projects, and these are very, very simple to build and define. So if you've ever done any dashboarding, it's just a drag and a drop with these different widgets, define a couple values. If you've done pivot tables in Excel, it's somewhat similar, and they're real-time updates. So if we notice this customer projects by customer down here, let's jump back. I'll just create another real quick project. All right. No, we'll just make Mr. Spends. And let's just set our set this to rigid and save that and close it. And now when I go back to my dashboard, we now see that rigid jumped up above any of the others. All right, so these are real-time information. The reports you run, you can run on a single project, or you can, I don't have any right here, but if you had general reports, I could run a general report and just pull in all of my project information, or I can just consume it through a dashboard view right here. Okay. All right, and then just because I know some of the people on the webinar here have sat through some of my previous sessions, just so you can kind of see the back end of this, I'll show you the administration real quick. Right-clicking on anything, just about anything in Manage, you have options and then administration. And the administration is where we kind of administer that item. So this is administering the cookie cutter. And it's a wizard-based tool. You step on through it. If I wanted to, say, add another customer or another property to that, let me back out of here for a second. So let's just pick on here. So this list right here, maybe I want to add something to that or change my customer list. Here's where I would add a new, if I wanted to add another property, I could add that property right here. If I want to change any of these, we can change these properties. And in this case, here's where my customer list is coming from. If I want it to come from an external data source, a SQL query, I can run that in here. All right. The property tab, so there's lots of different property tabs out here. I'm only using a handful of them to keep things simple. And I can label them however I want. So here I've got tasks. If I want to relabel it to something else, I can change that. Who has access to all of this? Okay, permissions are always important. And then those related files. So the folder structure for the related files, how do I want that to look, and for the references. So it's two different areas there. And then bills of materials, I didn't really get into that, but can we bring in bills of materials for these? Absolutely. So we can create BOMs inside of Manage and then drag those into our projects. And then here's where we define how many different planning templates do we want to put in here, and then how are these laid out? Do I want to go ahead and predefine tasks or let the users define those tasks themselves? The baseline is defined by this structure right here, and then adjusted after the project is created. Okay, and then there's a handful of other items here. So here's where I can add reports to be available to this, default notifications, and then we're done. So that's just a brief intro to the administration. All right, so just to finish up. Lots of different types of projects that you can create. Gantt charts are templated or can be built ad hoc. Add resources and tasks and files to each project. Files can be internal or they can come from external. Internal meaning to the PDM tool or to Manage itself. And then you have the overview for project planning where you can adjust the overall project timelines. And then for consuming all of this information, because it's a lot of information once you get a lot of projects in here, we have dashboards to aggregate it and reports to get our detailed information. All right, and then just to, I didn't have a really great screenshot. This came from SolidWorks. So SP3, we're already getting new features for SP3. I can tell you guys, SP1 and 2 got new features for Manage. So 3, not changing the cadence here. We're adding new features where we can now split stages over different date ranges because design and concept and fabrication, these things all happen, but I could work on some design and then we got an interruption, but I don't want to show that the project timeline is still going on. So I'm going to split that timeline over multiple date ranges. All right. And mainly, the main thing I want to point out here is that SolidWorks is putting a lot of effort into building Manage and adding to it. So we're going to see a lot of new stuff coming in through this. All right. So project management, it encompasses a lot of touch points. And with SolidWorks Manage, we're getting your entire team involved. And the big thing for me, because there's lots of project management tools out there, the big thing for me with this is that it sits on top of your PDM Vault, which most of you are already running. If you don't have SolidWorks PDM, when you get Manage, guess what? You get SolidWorks PDM Pro. So they go hand in hand, and now you're going to be able to have under one roof all of your vaulting, archiving, day-to-day document control, and then getting control of the complexity of that project level data. That's huge for me. All right, so I'm going to open up for questions. So please go to your questions bar, and I've already got a couple here. Give me a second to take these in, and I'll get to answering them. So a couple questions here real quick. When creating new projects, the pull downs can, like the customer ones I mentioned, can they come from SQL queries? Yes. So you can pull in lists and other things from other data sources. And it could also be internal. So Manage sits on top of SQL Server, which we're already using for PDM Professional, and it's just another database in your SQL Server. So you could manage the lists internal to Manage and PDM Professional, or you could pull in the data either through SQL Server or through some other means to build those. And then, so another question, when I added files from the customer, so that would be when I added these files right here, am I linking them from a current location, or am I moving the files from or to a new folder? If they're moving to a new folder, can that be specified for location inside of PDM Vault? So these particular files, they came from from outside. So if I open up my project, and let's say I've got another one here for a wiring diagram, for instance. I could go add a file external to my system. So I've got a wiring diagram. This is for something else, but I'll just go ahead and pull it in. So I've got this wiring diagram, and we're going to bring that in. That just came from my desktop. That could have come from emailed in, or from a salesperson, or from anybody. But if I have something inside of PDM, there's two ways I can bring that in. Over here on the right, I'm just referencing this. So, and I'll be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure out the difference between reference and the files list. But I could add a file that's sitting inside of my PDM Vault. So I'm in which one am I in? So this is the battery. So so if I come in, and let's say I've got here's a step file, for instance. I could bring in the step file, and we'll open that up, and now that is listed over here, and that brought it into Manage, whereas this actually created a second version of that step file. So I think in this case, if it already exists in your Vault, then just create it as a reference, and then pull that reference in. All right, so let's see, where's that step file? It's this one right here. So not the easiest of interfaces right here, but I can then take that step file and reference it over here on the left. And in referencing it, it doesn't create a duplicate on the related files. Maybe that's the differences here. So good question. All right, I'll leave it open for another minute for questions. All right, so it doesn't look like I have any more questions. If anybody thinks of anything later, or you're just so jacked up about this that you want to get more info on it, please just contact us. I'll be more than happy to get on any one-on-one conversations and more detailed presentations on this. And just kind of as an aside, I can tell you I'm so excited about this that I'm implementing it here at TPM for all of our project management needs. We've already been using SolidWorks PDM Professional for 2 years for project management and document archival. If anybody's ever received like a statement of work from us, it came from our PDM Professional installation, and now we're going to take that even further and do all of our project management in here. So I'm super excited about this, and again, if you got anything, please don't hesitate to contact us. And thank you very much for taking a few minutes out of your day, and have a wonderful afternoon.